Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
The Jays are going all in now, and following what was a heartbreaking decision yesterday from Kyle Tucker to join the Los Angeles Dodgers, the Jays have no choice but to go all in surrounding Bo Bichette, and some new reports, including one from Ben Nicholson-Smith, has dropped, revealing some big information surrounding their pursuit. We're going to break down these new updates and discuss what they mean going forward, but not only that, some more crazy details have emerged surrounding the Kyle Tucker contract that makes it even crazier than we initially thought, as well as a ton of other updates, including a report from Ken Rosenthal. You're going to want to stay tuned to the very end of the video, ladies and gentlemen. But before we get into it all, you guys have been absolute beasts with the support. It truly means the world to me. Folks, the Jays missed out on Kyle Tucker. I've had some hours now to kind of collect myself and realize that it still sucks, right? It's absolutely, it's horrible. It's arguably bad for baseball, depending on what way you look at it. But it's time to pivot now, and they have to go all in for this player. And it seems like a door has now been reopened for the Jays' pursuit of Bo Bichette, is following the record-breaking, not record-breaking, but almost record-breaking contract for Kyle Tucker here. The Jays, you can see here, this is from Ben Nicholson-Smith. She dropped an article after the signing of Tucker to the Dodgers. The news came after an anxious wait. Of course, we know the Jays officially, according to Ben Nicholson-Smith, did make the star outfielder a long-term offer that would have made him the second highest, paid Blue Jay ever. Now, ultimately, the Jays offer, as of the time of recording, hasn't been leaked. It might drop, in between. But regardless of that, you can see here at the end, with incumbents Bo Bichette and Cody Bellinger still on the market, the question now for the Blue Jays is how hard to push for another bat to further augment a club boosted by the additions of Cease, Okamoto, Rogers, and Cody Ponce. And he basically goes on to say that an agreement with Tucker would have signaled the end of the Blue Jays' relationship with Bichette, the franchise cornerstone since reaching the majors in 2019, who remains in free agency. But this is the key part from Ben Nicholson-Smith here. It may reopen a pathway now for his return, even if it's believed that there's a big financial gap with Bichette, who met with the Philadelphia Phillies this week. So this is pretty notable because, again, Ben Nicholson-Smith is very tuned in. He's very chimed into everything, and for him to come out and say that this may open up a pathway for his return is pretty crucial, because at this point in time, the Jays have to go all in. They have to for Bo Bichette, or maybe Cody Bellinger, which we'll dive into in this video and of course in a future video. All signs are pointing to Bichette right now, kind of, I guess between the Jays and the Phillies, but the Phillies gained a ton of momentum. And Ken Rosenthal recently came out and said that it seems like the Phillies are, Bo's number one option. But this is where the Jays now, who I assume have been in contact with Bo Bichette throughout this entire process with Kyle Tucker, can come back in and flex that financial muscle just a little bit more and get them actually, involved back in the deal with Bichette. And it might take a ton of money. It might take upwards of $300 million. But this is a notable report here from Ben Nicholson-Smith, because you can see here the alternative is a guy like Cody Bellinger. And you can see here from Josh Goldberg, would rather the Jays go into the season as is than give Belly a 6 or 7 year deal. Take a crack at trying to bring Bo back, but it's a no for me, Doug, on Bellinger. And I want to get your guys' thoughts on that in a minute, but let's circle back to Bo Bichette for a second. And of course, all of my focus, all of every Jays fan's focus really has been on Kyle Tucker as of late. But I do still think there's a very real chance they're going to go, and I think they're going to go all in, and they have to, on a guy like Bo Bichette again. He was one of the cornerstones of your franchise for the last, almost decade, right? And dating back to his minor league days, of course. And he obviously wasn't a cornerstone with them, within the minors, but for the past few years, he's been really the up-and-coming star, along with, of course, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and one of your cornerstones. And he's been someone who's been in the Jays system for a very long time since, getting called up. And he's best friends with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. The Jays have a lot of, advantages here. And at the end of the day, they did sign Vladdy. He said he wants to be a Blue Jay. And I don't think at this point the Toronto Blue Jays are going to sit back on their, sit back in their chairs and say, hey, we're going to let Bo walk to the Phillies. Yes, they've had good connections there, the Phillies and Bo Bichette. And yes, Bo Bichette is big fan and big friends with Don Mattingly, who went to the Phillies as their assistant bench coach, I think, or whatever it is, assistant manager. They're not going to sit back. Clearly, you see here from Johnny, people are talking about how just upset it likely damaged any remaining relationship with Bichette and lowered the chances he will return with this drawn-out process. And Johnny goes on to say that this did not damage any relationship with Bo Bichette. They kept in touch with him throughout the entire process. He understands the business and what comes with it. And this obviously isn't Johnny reporting that they have been in contact throughout the entire process. It's common sense here. They've obviously been in contact throughout the entire process. Ross Atkins, he knew they weren't going to get Kyle Tucker 100%, right? There was a chance that they didn't, which ultimately happened. They have been in contact with Bo Bichette, and he's a really good player. Is he as exciting as Kyle Tucker? No, but he could really fit this team. Now, Okamoto makes it a bit more difficult, I guess, to fit in everybody. You're going to have to play Ernie Clement in maybe a super utility role. Maybe you platoon Clement at shortstop against lefties and then, Andres Jimenez against righties. Who knows what they're actually going to do if they bring Bo Bichette back. And maybe Bo wants to play short, and then you put Jimenez back at second. And where do you find room for Ernie Clement, right? Because you have Okamoto who mashes and crushes lefties, and so does Ernie Clement. I'm not going to worry about that right now. I'm going to focus on getting another bat into this lineup because it is an absolutely crucial lineup right now, or rather a crucial addition to kind of add another bat into this team because, again, it's going to be wild. And surrounding Cody Bellinger, they could also go that way. It's a bit more of a seamless fit. The latest report from John Heyman from late last night is that the Yankees have offered multiple opt-outs to Cody Bellinger in their 5-year $155 offer. They're willing to add more money, but Cody Bellinger has countered that. Still is standing firm on 7 years. Let me know down below in the comment section. Would you be okay with the Jays overpaying a little bit for Cody Bellinger to get him on the team to add that one more bat? I'm actually a pretty big fan of Cody Bellinger. I know a lot of people aren't. I think he would fit this team really well. Great defender, of course, like really good defender. But not only that, I think he would, he's probably not going to be as good as he was last year with the Yankees because of that short porch. I don't hate the option here. I would much rather Bo Bichette, but if he goes to the Phillies, they're going to have to pivot quickly. And we're also good for a one Ross Atkins trade per offseason. We're at the point now where he hasn't made that big trade yet. So maybe we'll do a Andres Jimenez V2 trade this offseason and hopefully a better one than that maybe. But at the end of the day here, they have tons of options and tons of pathways to improve their team. They can make a trade. They can get Bo Bichette. They can get Kyle Tucker. They can get some other guys as well. Though at this point, they have to figure out something. And Ken Rosenthal dropped a report, and he basically talked about how at this point, the Jays' luxury tax is high. And he basically goes on to talk about a what if they got Tucker. And he said that signing Tucker would have been a remarkable shift in perception for the Jays. Rather, would have capped a remarkable shift in perception for the Jays. And at the end of the day here, he says even without Tucker, they should remain a force. Now, he is saying that he doesn't believe, according to Ken Rosenthal, that Bo Bichette's going to come to the Blue Jays. He thinks that he's going to go to the Phillies. So take that for what you will. That was a report from late last night. At this point, none of the reporters had the Jays or the Dodgers getting Bo Bichette, not Bo Bichette, Kyle Tucker, of course. None of them really said that was going to happen. No one really had Bregman to the Cubs. So the reporters are a little bit off this offseason. So we're just going to have to see and wait for ourselves here. But as always, I will keep you up to date every step of the way. And this is pretty notable from Ben Nicholson-Smith. It's good that he didn't throw cold water on everything like he usually does and say, hey, okay, they're not going to get Bo Bichette. They're pivoting to more minor moves. He said this could reopen a pathway for his return. Of course, he's employed by Sportsnet. He's employed by Rogers. So it's going to be interesting there. A few other things.
The moment Kyle Tucker slipped through Toronto's fingers felt like watching the final train pull out of the station while you're still sprinting down the platform, lungs burning, hope fading with every meter. 1 second you're daring to dream, the next you're staring at the back of a Los Angeles Dodgers jersey disappearing into the Californian sunset. For the Blue Jays, and for this fan base, it was heartbreak dressed up as inevitability. But heartbreak has a funny way of forcing decisions, and right now, the Toronto Blue Jays have reached that moment where hesitation is no longer an option. This is where the story pivots, where the lights dim on what might have been, and flare up on what absolutely has to happen next. Welcome back to the Blue Jays report, because this one matters. Yesterday's decision from Kyle Tucker didn't just sting, it echoed. It echoed through the front office corridors, through group chats, through the restless refresh buttons of Jays Twitter at 3 in the morning. This was supposed to be the move. The bold, chest-thumping declaration that Toronto was done flirting with contention and ready to fully commit. Instead, Tucker chose the Dodgers, baseball's gluttonous superpower, a franchise that treats MVP-level talent like decorative pieces rather than precious heirlooms. And while you can argue until you're blue in the face about whether that's bad for baseball, the only thing that matters for the Jays is this: the plan has changed, and it has changed dramatically. Take a moment here, if you're enjoying this breakdown, to like the video, share it with fellow Jays fans, and subscribe to the Blue Jays Report. Your support genuinely keeps this channel alive, and trust me, this off-season is far from over. After some hours to cool off, to stop doom-scrolling and start thinking clearly, the reality sets in. Missing out on Kyle Tucker is brutal, yes, but it's also clarifying. It strips away the illusion of endless optionality and leaves Toronto staring at a very specific crossroads. They have to go all in now. And the name flashing brightest on that signpost is Bo Bichette. Or Bo Bichette, as the rumors and misspellings swirl like winter snow around Rogers Center. Whatever spelling you prefer, the meaning is the same. This is the moment. Ben Nicholson-Smith dropped a report that, quietly but significantly, shifted the entire tone of this conversation. According to his article, the Blue Jays did make Tucker a long-term offer, one that would have made him the second highest-paid Blue Jay in franchise history. That detail alone matters, because it confirms something fans have been desperate to believe: the Jays were serious. They weren't window shopping. They were prepared to spend, prepared to stretch, prepared to alter the perception of this organization across the league. And here's where it gets interesting. Nicholson-Smith points out that an agreement with Tucker would have almost certainly signaled the end of the Blue Jays' relationship with Bo Bichette, the franchise cornerstone since 2019, a player whose story is intertwined with this team's modern identity. But Tucker didn't sign. The door didn't just stay ajar, it creaked back open. Nicholson-Smith explicitly says this may reopen a pathway for Bichette's return, even acknowledging a significant financial gap, especially with the Phillies now heavily involved. That line is doing a lot of work. Because Ben Nicholson-Smith doesn't deal in empty optimism. When he suggests a pathway exists, it's because conversations are happening, phones are buzzing, and numbers are being quietly slid across polished tables. The Jays aren't done. Not even close. At this stage, Toronto's options narrow and intensify. It's Bo Bichette, Cody Bellinger, or a bold, unexpected trade that nobody sees coming. But let's be honest, all signs point back to Bo. The Phillies have momentum. Ken Rosenthal has suggested they're his preferred destination, and yes, there are genuine connections there. Familiar faces, comfort, maybe even a sense of being wanted without complication. But Toronto has something Philadelphia doesn't: history, friendship, and unfinished business. Bo Bichette isn't just another free agent. He's one half of the duo that defined this era alongside Vladimir Guerrero Jr. He came up through this system, grew under these lights, learned how to fail and succeed in this city. His best friends with Vlad. He watched Vlad commit long-term. And that matters more than spreadsheets like to admit. The Blue Jays aren't naive. They know this could take an eye-watering figure, perhaps north of $300 million. But if there was ever a time to flex financial muscle, it's now. Some fans worry that the drawn-out Tucker pursuit damaged the relationship. That Bo felt sidelined, treated like a backup plan. But common sense tells a different story. Ross Atkins didn't stumble blindly into the Tucker sweepstakes without contingency plans. Communication never stopped. Bo understands the business. He understands that stars chase stars, and front offices chase leverage. This wasn't personal. It was procedural. Now, the on-field fit isn't without complications. Adding Bichette back into a lineup that now includes Okamoto, Andres Gimenez, and Ernie Clement raises legitimate questions. Who plays where, who sits against which-handedness, who sacrifices playing time for the greater good. But those are good problems. Those are champagne problems. You don't turn down elite talent because the seating arrangement is awkward. If Bo somehow slips away, the conversation turns sharply to Cody Bellinger. A cleaner positional fit, a Gold Glove defender, and a bat that still carries intrigue despite questions about consistency. The Yankees' reported offer of 5 years and $155 million with multiple opt-outs shows the market shape, but Bellinger is standing firm on 7 years. That's where hesitation creeps in for many fans. Overpaying in years, risking decline, tying flexibility to a player whose peak may already be behind him. I'll throw it to you here. Drop a comment and let me know. Would you accept a slight overpay for Cody Bellinger if it meant securing that final impact bat? Make your voice heard, and while you're at it, make sure you're subscribed to the Blue Jays Report so you don't miss how this unfolds. Beyond free agency, there's always the Ross Atkins wildcard. One big trade per off-season feels like tradition at this point, and we're still waiting. Maybe it's another headline-grabbing swing. Maybe it's a quieter but smarter move than past attempts. The point is, the Jays aren't boxed in. They have pathways, leverage, and motivation. Ken Rosenthal weighed in as well, noting that even without Tucker, the Blue Jays should remain a force. He suggested that signing Tucker would have capped a remarkable shift in perception for the organization, but absence doesn't equal irrelevance. Still, perception matters. And perception is shaped by what happens next. As for Tucker's deal itself, the details only add insult to injury. A net present value north of $57 million per season, a massive signing bonus reportedly pushing past $60 million, minimal deferrals, and an opt-out after year 2. It's ludicrous. It's the Dodgers flexing financial gravity like a supermassive black hole, bending the sport around them. You tip your cap, grit your teeth, and move on. Because that's what Toronto has to do. Move on, but not retreat. The Jays are at a defining moment. They can't afford half measures, cautious optimism, or moral victories. This is about commitment, identity, and telling both the clubhouse and the league exactly who they intend to be. The Kyle Tucker chapter is closed, but the book is far from finished. Whether it's Bo Bichette coming home, Cody Bellinger arriving with questions and upside, or a shock trade that rewrites expectations overnight, one thing is clear. The Blue Jays are going all in, because they have no other choice. And when the dust settles, we'll be right here on the Blue Jays Report, breaking down every twist, every rumor, and every decision that shapes the future of this franchise.